Turn to number 179. That will be the song of invitation. Tonight I was going to speak on a different topic, but then something came up this week. And when I started the job I'm working last January, there was a young man that worked there, and I didn't know him very well. And he only worked for a few more months after I came, and then he left and moved off. And we got word this week that he took his own life. And so people at work's been having to deal with that, those that knew him better than I did. And that's things like that always make you stop and think. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking. And, I've heard things like, well, he had some radical ideas. He lived with a male partner. And so anyway, I think there's some lessons we can learn. And I boiled it down to two lessons. And the first is that we need to break down the walls. And what that means is that, we're all kind of guarded, especially around people we don't know. And we keep our cards close to the vest. And we all walk around with things that bother us, but we put on our smile and we go to work and we work and do those things. And if you look at the person down the hall or next to you or whatever, you think things are great. You exchange pleasantries in the morning and everybody seems to be good. And then you find out things like this, that, other things were going on. And so, you really never know people. And part of that is because we have our walls up. And even our society discourages face-to-face contact. We have Facebook, which has nothing to do with face-to-face contact. I don't know where they came up with that name, but it's really a paradox or an oxymoron. This social media in general just discourages the kind of things that a lot of us knew as when we were younger and kids, that you communicated face to face. And I think that God has made us that way. We desire that social interaction. And when I say social interaction, I'm not talking about social media. That is far from social interaction, because people can get on that and say just about anything they want to say and hurt whoever they want to, and they don't have to look the other person in the eye and see how much harm it's doing to them. And so, we need face-to-face contact with others, and especially Christians. Those of us who are Christians, we need constant and continual contact with one another. And, I'm reminded of a song that I heard, several years ago. It talked about how we need more front porch sitting. And I think I mentioned that about a week or so ago, that if you want to sit on the front porch, come to my house. I've got rocking chairs. We'll sit and we'll rock for a while like the old days. And it's very comforting. And Rhonda spends a lot of time out there in the rocking chair. And when I was a kid, of course, most people rode around with their windows down because most didn't have air conditioning anyway, and their houses didn't have air conditioning. And people would sit out on their porches. You drive around out in the country. I grew up in the country, and people were out on their porches, and they wave at you as you went by. And if you knew them, sometimes you would just stop and get out and what they call sit a spell, and and have that face to face interaction. And that's gone. That's gone from our society. People are so busy running up and down the interstate doing 80 miles an hour, trying to drive as fast as they can to get to the job they hate. And we just don't have time for others anymore. And too many things of the world is distracting. TV, entertainment, sports, whatever it might be, is pulling us away from the relationships we need to be having. And as Christians, we just need to spend more time together and get to know each other better and encourage one another. In Hebrews chapter 10, we go to this verse 25 a lot about not forsaking the assembling together. But I like to go back to verse 24. It's hard to read 25 without 24, and I feel kind of like if we do that, we're taking it out of context. But 24 says, "Let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good works, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." And we usually associate this with the assembling to worship. Now, the verses don't necessarily say that. Now, it does talk about the day drawing near, as you see the day drawing near. And if that's not the first day of the week, I don't know what it is. But when you read this, it says, as you see that day drawing near, you to encourage one another all the more. It makes me think that they had connections, they had interaction more than just the first day of the week. Because how can you encourage someone as the day is drawing near if you're not seeing one another and interacting with one another on almost a daily basis? And so I think this verse tells us more than just the assembly, that we need to have even more encouraging and more consideration for one another than just when we come to church. And so I'm putting that out there because, if we can't encourage one another, who is going to encourage us? The world surely is not. So we have to help one another. So I think that is a lesson that I've learned, just putting this together, that this verse is talking about more than just worship. The second lesson that I think we can learn from the story that I'm telling you is that a life of sin leads to a dark place. It does. And Satan has this lie that sin is fun and it's all good times. That's a lie. Sure, it might be fun to begin with, might be different. I can understand, the LTGBT, whatever those initials are, you know who I'm talking about. That with society the way that it is today, it must be very liberating for them to come out of the closet and to do the things that they want to do and to have the fun that they want to have. It's also interesting that the statistics for suicide, which are going up at the same time. How about that? Is it all fun? Is it all good times? Well, This guy I worked with, apparently, it wasn't for him. And that's the way it is for some. Um, and you know, people think that fornication and perversions and sex changes and other types of sin is good, but look where it leads. Look where it leads. It leads to guilt. It leads to misery, suicide that we've already talked about, and ultimately spiritual death. Spiritual death, and that's the most serious thing. In Revelation 21 and 8. Now it doesn't mention homosexuality here, but there are other passages that do mention it. It says, "But for the cowardly, the unbelieving, the abominable," which that could include those folks, "and murderers and immoral persons," it could include them, "and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." That's a bad place. That's a dark place. And it's hard for us to understand how a place that's on fire can also be dark. It's when we sit around the campfire, that campfire gives off light. But God says it's a dark place. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, and it's a place of fire and brimstone. It's the second death. It's a bad place. And so a life of sin certainly does lead to a dark place. And so I think those two lessons, that we need to break down the walls and be closer to one another and encourage one another, and that a life of sin leads to a dark place. They're kind of opposites, aren't they? And we all want to be in that first group, not the second group, because that first group is going to be going back with Jesus to heaven. And that's where we want to be. The invitation's available. If there's anything in your life that you need to straighten up, if you need to repent of some sin, if you need the prayers of the saints, we stand ready to assist you. Come while we stand and sing. God.